before we can dive into the synoptic problem itself, we first have to understand what the synoptic gospels are. The synoptic gospels is a term for the gospel of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. The reason for the name the synoptic gospels is because these three gospels seem to follow a similar pattern and give the same general synopsis of Jesus' life. The synoptic problem is the study of the literary relationship between the three synoptic gospels. So the root of the synoptic problem is to understand how and why these three gospels are so similar. The synoptic gospels are so similar that they often not only contain the same accounts, but the wording and phrasing of these accounts are strikingly similar across the three gospels. Another facet of the synoptic problem is the material shared only by the two big gospels, Matthew and Luke. Matthew and Luke contain many accounts that only they have in common. The most famous of these would be the Sermon on the Mount, or in Luke's case, the Sermon on the Plain. Another aspect is the unique material found respectively in Matthew and Luke. We, for example, only find the parable of the two sons in Matthew, and we only find the parable of the Good Samaritan in Luke. So when faced with the realization that the synoptic gospels are strikingly similar, theologians began theorizing over the years about the gospels' relationship to each other, what source material was available to the gospel writers, and their writing process in general. Virtually all modern scholars believe that Mark is the first gospel to be written, and that Matthew and Luke used it as a source for their gospels. So virtually all hypotheses is based on Mark as the first gospel and the foundation for the others in some kind of way. The most popular hypothesis is the two-source hypothesis. The hypothesis claim is that Mark wrote his own gospel, maybe with some ancient Christian writings or oral tradition as source material, and that Matthew and Luke both used Mark and the hypothesized document Q. The hypothesis also claimed that Matthew and Luke didn't have knowledge of each other's gospels. So you might be thinking, what is Q? Q is a hypothesized document that would primarily have contained sayings and speeches of Jesus, and an early writing like Q would explain the shared material between Matthew and Luke. The four-source hypothesis is an expansion of the traditional two-source model. In the four-source model, there is added the two hypothesized documents L and M, which would have contained the unique material of Matthew and Luke. The Ferrer hypothesis is a model that disregards Q and explains the shared material between Matthew and Luke by saying that Luke used Matthew as source material along with Mark. This model eliminates the need for a document like Q, which we have no archaeological proof of. This hypothesis would also better explain than the two-source or the four-source hypothesis Luke 1:1.